Hello.
Yo, what's up?
Pretty good. What about you? Okay, that's good. Um, Dawood, are you there?
Yeah,
Um, so I wish you and everyone a nice and fruitful day or evening, whatever time zone you're in. I came to the stage in reference to your words, detrimental and absurd for atheism. Do you defend um, the same right of speech, which could be reciprocated by an atheist back to Islam or to other religions, saying the very exact phrases that you used, such as Islam is detrimental and absurd, or poisonous and stupid and irrelevant to our times. Do you vindicate? Do you defend the right to speak of other groups or opposing groups coming up with the same claim that you made for them?
yeah, absolutely. At my
Thank
stage,
you.
you're
If you defend the freedom of speech for every angle, for every perspective, for every side, then we're on the same page, at least in principle, that people should not be killed or should not be murdered, slaughtered for their views, be it pro-Islam or be it non-theistic or atheistic. So then, my question to you is that in this light, in this context, how do you interpret or how do you assess the case of Salman Rushdie and his brutal, brutal stabbing after many years? Um, that's my question to you.
okay. Okay. First, thank you for coming on stage, and thank you for this question. I like this. This is a good question. Um, Salman Rushdie was someone who was attacked. Who was attacked. I mean, let me be careful because I know, like I know people take this like too personal, but he could have been attacked by his own doing. Because these people bring, like similar to again, I know people get personal about these things, but similar to Charlie Kirk. And I'm not, if someone wants to say I'm ignorant about these people or who these people really were, that's fine. But if you're asking me the question, then Salman Rushdie was someone who was an antagonizer, who I believe, yeah, people like Ion Hersey, Douglas Murray, these people who are all for free speech, and I'm for free speech, by the way. What Salman Rushdie was not a symbol of free speech. He was a symbol of trolling. He was a symbol of being an antagonizer.
Did you read the Satanic Verses yourself?
No, I did not. I did
The
not.
book.
No, no, I did not. But I mean, do you feel? Do you know? Here's maybe so to kind of like just simplify what happened to Salman Rushdie. I think it's awful because people should not. It's always awful when someone is murdered or stabbed or killed or attacked. But I also believe that if someone that so let me just stop there. Full stop. It's awful. It's wrong. But now let me go into another mode where I'm trying to explain where we
We
both
should condemn the act, right?
we should
I mean, you
we
agree.
yeah but we should condemn it. But I want to say something. But we should also recognize that if somebody walks into the hood and starts attacking, like the hood is like, these rough neighborhoods in the United States. If someone goes in there where there's a whole bunch of all right, bye. There's a whole bunch of gangs and all this stuff. Rough people, and you start antagonizing people, mocking them, and then you get stabbed. It wouldn't be surprising, and in fact, I would actually question the rationale of that person who's doing that. So yeah, I can condemn it. I can say, oh, it's wrong. But then it kind of seems like the person was kind of doing it to themselves.
What do you mean by that? I sense innuendo there. I sense like you mean he deserved it. For though you condemn it. Is it how I should understand?
Well, I wouldn't say he deserved it, but I would say he's asking for it. That's I mean, when you make a whole bunch of enemies by doing writing
Do you mean
something and
he asked he
deliberately.
do you mean that he, by asking for it, he called he provoked people to come and stab him? Is he a masochistic one? Is he a masochistic person? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just thinking. So maybe not. Like, I mean, obvious. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, obviously, he's not asking. He's not asking people like, "Hey, come and literally stab me." Bye. Um, he's not. He's not doing that. But what he is doing is saying, um, asking for it in a different way, in the sense that word means. Like, it's like you have it coming for you. If you, again, let's use the hood analogy. Like, if I went to the hood and I was being inflammatory, and I mean, just here in the streets of in Philly, and just being inflammatory, just kind of like picking and mocking people in the streets, in their neighborhoods, right in front of their house. The question is, do I not have? I mean, what am I asking for at that point? What is the rationale of doing that? Now, of course, maybe he now. I would say, like, he wasn't asking for it, because maybe he thought like no one's gonna attack him. These Muslims are not gonna go crazy. Yeah, I can mock them all they want. I can spit in their faces. Did you see the guy who was spitting in kids' faces, like the MSA? I don't know if you saw. There've been several videos that have come out, I think in Texas or somewhere, where Muslim innocent students were just praying. They were just praying. They weren't doing anything. They were being quiet and praying and being civil. And then some like rednecks came and or started, like, some of these white people came and they just spit on them. And so I guess my question is, what do people expect? What are people trying to do in these cases? What do they
So
expect?
do you think that it's proportionate, the compensation?
No, I don't think it's, I mean, is it proportionate? uh, okay, that's a good question. I mean, no, because I don't believe in vigilante justice. I don't believe in vigilantism. So I think, but I do think it. So I can't. I wouldn't say it's. I mean,
Should it not have been a pen to pen battle? Don't you think so?
I'm someone.
He used his pen. So should it not be reciprocated with a stronger pen or with another pen
So look, I in in the midst.
instead of releasing fatwas or coming and stabbing him after decades?
Yeah. So yeah. Let me say this. Two things. So first, the fatwas are easily condemnable. Uh, very very much inappropriate. And also even really really just childish. I think it was ridiculous for them to make this fatwa, to draw too much attention to it. So that's number one. But actually, going back to, you've made me think about the stabbings a little bit more. And actually, I wanna I want to go back from take back kind of like the force in some of the things I said, because now I'm not too sure I would condemn it, and here's why. Because again, it's rooted in my firm belief that when someone has something coming to them, I can't really condemn the other person for reacting how they're going to react anyways. They don't really have a choice in how they're going to react. You know, the person who stabbed him, I take was most likely crazy or insane or some, you know, very like unstable person. And my question
So
is,
you
would
do
you,
not condemn the act.
yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about like the level of quality in which I'm condemning, I'm not going to condemn. No, it should
And
not. That
why
that
not?
absolutely should.
Why not?
Well,
He
because
used
because
he used he used his intellectual tool, uh, his cerebral functions, his brain, his intellectual capacity or incapacity, whatever you call it. But should it not have been reciprocated in the same manner through publishing, through publication, through rebuttaling?
I think your question is, would that have been better than just attacking? Yes, that would. But if you're asking me, should that have been? I actually think the most appropriate thing would have been to just ignore him. Um, but no, that's why I wouldn't. I think even doing a pin to pin battle would have been dignifying him a bit more than I would have liked. But yeah, if you're saying is that better than stabbing? Of course, I believe that. But again, let's go back to condemning. I still wouldn't.
It's
I would.
better because if I make such a superlative comparison, that means it is less better or less worse, but still better. No, categorically, I deny someone being stabbed, no matter what he or she does say or write. Do you think that I don't want to call necessarily Islam, but Muslims today uh, today passed the tests about vindicating the freedom of speech?
Can you say more? What you mean?
What I mean, do you think that Muslims passed the test of respecting the freedom of speech?
Okay, I mean, what's your point there? I mean, you know, I'm not going to comment on that, but you know what my views on freedom of speech is. I can't speak for.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because 3 to 5 minutes ago you said you condemned the act, and now you say you don't. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, let me clarify. Yeah, I can gladly clarify. People have the right to speak, right? But then I can't say what's going to happen to you if you go into the hood. Does that mean I'm denying your freedom of speech? No, but I'm
Is
saying if
Islam
you go into the hood,
is Islam
wait, wait,
using
wait.
use?
Hold on. Let me finish. Let me
Okay,
finish my
sure,
point because I'm
sure,
just trying to clarify,
sure.
and I'm hoping like you don't have to agree with me, but I'm hoping my views are crystal clear that I believe in your right to speak, but if you're going to go to the hood and say, okay, my right to speak. My right to speech and to express myself translates to me going to the hood and mocking a whole bunch of people. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say, well, now let me go condemn those people. You have the right to speak, yes, but that doesn't conflict with that. That doesn't mean that I believe you have the right to just go anywhere and do whatever you want.
So should I, using your metaphor, allow me to ask: is Islam a dangerous lane, a dangerous town to talk at?
Well, everyone. So I mean, everyone is, you know, potentially dangerous. It depends on, like I said, I think I'm using what I'm taking, what I'm trying to buttress this analogy is that you're going to a dangerous town. You can speak about certain topics, but why do you necessarily have to go to a dangerous place, and it's not Islam. He was deliberately targeting Muslims in particular in very specific ways.
Um, like, I think you haven't given um, a clear answer, but it's fine. Uh, but going back to the question of your mockery, sorry, the statement of your mockery statement. Do you not think that the holy book of Islam, the Quran itself, mocks the disbelievers categorically? I mean, I don't mean atheists, but whoever doesn't believe in the principles um, announced or announced by the Prophet of Islam. Whoever objects, Quran despises and belittles them, even calls them filth, filth. Yeah, metaphorically and physically. I mean, they are um, they are called as filth or dirt. I mean, is it a nice way of calling people who do not believe, who do not answer your calling? Is it a nice way to label them?
Yeah, no, that's definitely not a nice
The
way.
Arabic word is najis, right? He uses the word. The text uses the word najis. It means filth or dirt. It can be interpreted physically or metaphorically, but I think it's not the politest term to use.
Yeah, so no, it's not a nice thing to do or to say about all Muslims and I'm sorry, all non-Muslims, and but this is granting your distorted interpretation of the verse. So I think yeah, if we're gonna strawman the Quran, then it wouldn't surprise me like that we come up with all kinds of bizarre and crazy conclusions. So I would
No, I mean
yeah.
my argument is that if the mockery is your concern, Quran itself does it a lot. This is what I mean. Quran doesn't respect the disbelievers categorically, no matter what they are involved in violence or in violence or trade boycott against Muslims, no matter what they are in, even if they are non-violent, even if they are passive, or even if they are neutral. For them, for the text, for the Quran, if they are disbelievers, if they don't answer the call of the Prophet, and if they don't believe in his messenger status and his revelation, so called, his claims, for Quran, they are despicable people.
Okay, yeah. So, like I said, if all you're doing here is painting me a picture of how you interpret the Quran, which is, it's always interesting when people do because it's very interesting to hear what the Quran means in various different radical, extreme, and goofy ways. I like to call this interpretation goofy 10.9, but yeah, I mean, so if you have this interpretation, you're reading it that way, then it wouldn't surprise me that those are the conclusions that you would come to, and I would agree that then that would be horrible, despicable, and all the stuff that you mentioned. But I don't, that's not my take on the Quran. So you just have to go back to the drawing board, it seems. But look, we're hopping topics. Let's go back and settle the thing about going to the hood and being provocative, and why you feel it should be, it's that would be appropriate, why free speech extends to just a kind of like absolutist
Actually,
version where
we are not off the
you're saying
topic.
you're not.
I give it, I give you another example, telling you that if the provocation, if people being incited is your concern, Quran does it par excellence. That does the same.
Yeah,
So why one is not acceptable and the other is for you?
it's a simple answer. According to you, it does. According to me, it doesn't. And you're pushing.
I am
Wait, hold on, one second.
okay.
And then you're pushing your interpretation. I'm like, yeah, I don't. You haven't convinced me that your interpretation is the interpretation. I certainly don't read the Quran that way. I understand that when the Quran talks about non-Muslims, there's a certain dialectic. It condemns particular types of non-Muslims, and then it speaks very softly and gently and
What?
mercifully to other types of
Yeah.
non-Muslims. I understand if you don't follow that dialectic, then that's on you. But you can't. You haven't convinced.
What makes you think that my
Hold on. Let
interpretation
me
is
wait. Let me.
distorted?
When you speak, I'm very attentive and I want to hear what you're saying. So just afford me the same thing. So I'm saying that it's fine if you don't understand the dialectic. That's fine. But then there's another thing of you trying to convince me that I'm being inconsistent. But you have to remember, I don't have your view of. I don't read the Quran the way you do. If I read the Quran the way you did, then yeah, it would be inconsistent. So I don't think I am being inconsistent.
Okay, I mean then um, I hold the same position in reference to your hood analogy that that I don't read in the way in the same way you do. Um, one can come and become provocative, become sleazy, become very pedantic, can act in a very disturbing way, but my response should not be the should not be the attempt to choke the person or to stab him or to kill him or to brutally wound the person. I can actually um, I would tell you an interesting advice from the Quran itself. Leave that place. If you feel that you're mocked, that's what the Quran advises, at least in the period of Mecca, to his followers and believers, that if you feel that you are mocked in a place by those people, and if you believe that it's really impossible to explain anything to them, okay, leave the place. So why Muslims do not simply make it? Simply ignore, as you said, ignore the guy, or pretend the dead, if I should say. Why not?
Uh, okay, I would say that's a good question, but I did answer that. I mean I completely agree. So I'm at the point where I think I'm not sure what it is you're arguing, and I'm also not sure if you're hearing my responses or if you know my position.
I don't know your position because you said at once that you condemn, and later on you changed your mind within the course of the discussion. You said you don't condemn it.
Yeah, and do you remember why I said I don't condemn it, or why I've in the midst of the conversation why I said I want to pull back on condemning?
Excuse me, can you repeat again?
Yeah, I was saying, do you recall why I said I wanted to pull back on like just
Because he came to the hood and provoked. And I asked you if Islam categorically potentially a dangerous hood. Is it a favela? Is Islam a favela that we should be careful at?
Yeah, good. So, yeah. So to go back to your question, especially the verses that I do think you appropriately interpreted and used appropriately to state a norm that Muslims should abide by, which is leave the person, ignore the person. Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. I do think the most appropriate thing would be the most in terms of like hierarchy would be to just completely ignore the person. I don't even think Muslims should have dignify. I think Muslims there's a lot of derogatory people that Muslims just shouldn't dignify by responding to or addressing or anything like that. Just let people be. And then at the very the bottom of that hierarchy, something similar to what you said, like using the pen to fight the pen and whatever. So is giving an intellectual response, sure, but certainly not never allowing for violence. But then when it comes to these specific instances, what I said, my refusal to give a very strong condemnation, I do think I mean, I don't view something like this favorably. So there would be some kind of like condemning, but I wouldn't want to. Why I've been hesitant is because I don't really feel that the person has these particular people that are being attacked, or that are being people are antagonizing. I think these people don't really have a similar kind of agency. It's like other people, the kinds of people who are just able to ignore or walk away. Some of these other people are just like it just becomes too overwhelming, and so I don't. It becomes very difficult for me to blame these people in the same way I would have to. Someone would ask me to have to blame uh, people in the hood if they're also being victimized by someone who deliberately decided to go out and target people in the hood to try and rile them up and provoke violence. And,
But that's not Salman did. That's not what Salman did. He just wrote. He published. That's all. And another
yeah, I think that's
very
irrelevant though. That's irrelevant because we can discuss.
so your spitting example doesn't match here
Right,
because he
right.
sorry.
We could talk about that. But the point that first we're dealing with the moral issue, because you feel like my view is unclear. My view should be this should hopefully clarify my view, and then we could talk about what actually happened if we do view him to be a provocateur.
Um, every man and women having some consensus on some common humanitarian values should condemn it without any but, without any footnote or side note. But going back to your remarks, you have made an interesting point that, or rather, a very dangerous, if I should say, standard. You have set a dangerous standard for the freedom of speech. Like, you should not offend, you should not arouse some hostile feelings in people's hearts. So, what am I supposed to do, or why should it be my responsibility to pay an extra attention and care, not to cause any unwanted, unplanned, unintended provocation in people's heart? How can I level myself? How can I set myself in such an ideal um, ideal standard or in such an ideal position um, to speak which causes no disturbance in for anyone. Is there such a standard? I mean, I can come and say that, you know, Dawood, I intellectually believe that Muhammad was a liar and he was a hallucinator. And I can tell you that if today would be possible to make a medical check, maybe the person, the prophet of Islam might be diagnosed with with epilepsy or some other kind of cognitive diseases. Um, this is just an example. Okay, it's not my personal point of view, but someone can think like that. And do you think that this is a safe remark or statement which would cause no disturbance? Or why should I care about others' disturbances? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm and sorry when I take pauses, it's because I'm trying to think about your question. Um, should it so uh, should it cause a disturbance? Oh no, so you know actually you asked why should you care? So I'll answer why should you care? Well that oh yeah, that's an easy question. Because I think it's wrapped up in, for me at least, I guess this is worth talking about. For me, it's wrapped up in the whole idea of free speech. So I think free speech is an essential good. And that's why I do, like you, promote free speech. But I think here's where it gets controversial, the extent to which free speech should be allowed. And I don't think free speech should include the right to mock and to mock and gratuitously criticize and just like it should not it
Is it a mockery? Is what
wait,
I
wait,
said?
hold on, let me finish. I let you speak, and let me just speak, because sometimes my things aren't as clear, so I want to try and do justice to it, so at least you understand it, and then we can talk. You don't have to agree. So when I think of free speech, I mean, why even have free speech to begin with? Like, why can't I just say, you know what? I think by force we should shut people up, shut people down, not allow people to speak. You know, what's the whole goal? And for me, it's essential to any kind of democratic system to check powerful or power structures, to develop creative thought or advanced knowledge and those sort of things to bring about truth. So it's all for the greater good. But and then if we want to include, like, well, it's also to kind of like make fun of this kid. I just want to have the freedom to like mock this kid because his mom passed away from cancer. Well, that to me doesn't, like, I don't think free speech should extend to situations like that. So if you want to come up on in these on these stages, intellectual spaces, and raise criticisms against Islam or the Prophet Sallallahu, uh, you're allowed to. That's part of free speech. If your goal is the advancement of knowledge, to call out an issue, a concern, something that you view to be poisonous or disastrous, kind of like similar to like the same way I say the same thing about atheism. We're allowed to do that, and we need to create a society where we're given spaces where we're allowed to do this. But then, and free speech, if you want that free speech to extend to people just kind of mocking religions, me mocking atheists and saying, they're not even human, they don't deserve to live, and this kind of like fuels violence, that is not allowed for anyone, any group of people, whether it's atheists, Muslims, anyone. So that's where free speech does not extend to. I hope that is clear. And sorry, I one more thing, and I get that you're saying, oh, but it's not mocking. I get that, and that's a different discussion. That would be, now we can talk about if it's really mocking or if it's a civil, a critique, if it's an intellectual critique. We can talk about that. That's going to be I think a bigger that's going to be a big discussion. But I hope we're both on the same page that free speech should not extend to these groups or people that are just intending to like mock for the sake of mock and ridicule. That is causing harm.
Yes, but the point we couldn't come to an agreement yet is that I like the quote, I feel offended now. I feel being mocked. And other statements as such, these are completely sentimental disclaimers. These are completely sentimental remarks. So my question to you is that who's got the authority to set the bar? Who's got the authority to set the threshold and definition of where the mockery starts and where it ends, or where the criticism starts and where it ends? Um, these are very vague terms for which no one can come to a definitive, a certain consensus. Because your limit, your threshold of feeling mocked can not be the same for another Muslim, right?
Okay. So let me say a few things now. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question. That in fact, I think that is the question, and I feel that this should be largely relative or based on the kind of like I mean, it should be more of a collective thing. And by collective, I mean like people, given their context, given the society, given their situation, will know across the ethnic identities, across religious identities, gender identities, will know what is offensive. So in America, we have we know what is offensive to Americans, and we Americans can collectively, say like these things are offensive, these things to anyone, and I think, and spaces where, things are spaces where these things would be inappropriate and so on. Of course, people are still like discussing those, like back and forth. So for example, a good incident that really showed this, I think, was the famous slap that was heard all across the globe, where Will Smith slapped the soul, the life out of Chris Rock for mocking his wife. Many people think was super inappropriate, and Will Smith, I think, is not allowed to go to the Oscars for like the next 10 years after that event, um, because people feel like in that kind of space you should be allowed to mock, and like there is no. I guess going back to your point, like people shouldn't be offended. Like what you're signing up for, where you're going, you're going to be mocked, in this kind of setting. So people shouldn't. There shouldn't be no offense at all. Some people maybe even in something like the Oscar awards, people are still trying to figure out like, well, how do we, what really determines whether or not this is appropriate or not. I think that is an ongoing discussion for communities, for people in communities, and I think it's a fair question. I don't really have the answer, but what is important, I think, is that you do agree with me that free speech cannot extend to offensive types of speech. As long as you agree that, and then we can talk about. I think it's a fair point. We can talk about, okay, what is offensive? Sure, that's a good. That is the question actually. But some people, and I hope that I hope that's not you. I hope we can agree at least that that's not you. Some people would say no, free speech should extend to even the right to say something offensive.
Um, if the boundaries, I don't know what those boundaries are, as I said, where they start, where they end. Even if those boundaries are crossed, um, The retaliation should not be stabbing. The retaliation should not be the senseless slaughtering, butchering of those people in a broad daylight. If you're offended through a pen, then, as I said, you should reciprocate through your pen as well, because you trust, you have the confidence that you have got the most appropriate belief, you've got the most timeless and universal and human friendly belief. Okay, if this is what you believe, then you should act accordingly. So I do not honestly accept your hood explanation, your hood metaphor, and proportionality again is my point here. So I think that Muslims most of the time lose their control, get extremely outraged, and respond in a very disproportionate way, and uh, you know, through this way, they do something very, very harmful to themselves as well, that their voices no longer get heard, because they do. Um, in Turkish, we use an idiom calling zipping your jeans incorrectly. So if you start zipping your jeans incorrectly, your result would be incorrect as well. So I guess you understand what I mean. So we should zip the button correctly. We should start from the right, from the correct point, in order not to let us fall into let us fall into a situation we make our views undefendable and unheard, because we, as I said, open the door through killing and so on, or stabbing, and then the rest becomes an unimportant nuance, or unimportant yeah.
Okay, so first, it's interesting you're from Turkey. A lot of things make sense now, but
Oh,
good.
is
This
it?
Tur-
So do you make a personal reading of that? I mean, I don't.
no,
I believe
no,
you should not. An intellectual should not
okay, okay.
make any personal reading to come up with
No, I know, I know.
his argument. I mean, my life or my geography or my country should not matter, I think, in this discussion.
Okay, what I mean is, in Turkey, these are the kinds of important questions, I think, and the dynamics of like religion and politics, and so that's what I mean to say. And I also actually like Turkey. I really for Turkey and Turkish people, and I've been to Turkey several times. It's more of a compliment. I know you might not take it that way, but okay. In any ways, let me answer your question.
Possible for me to endorse, to confirm what you say. I mean, for me, he's actually, you know what? I mean, of course, you would understand years later that he is the worst Muslim leader that can someone imagine as a Muslim who holds the power, and you can understand if you check the statistics in the recent years about the upper states. Uh, the rise of upper states in Turkey, converting from their religion or denouncing their religion. Either they claim themselves as atheists or deists and so on. So I think, but that's beyond the scope of this discussion, I believe. So, as I said, my geography, my country, where I live, and my cultural or religious background should not matter in this discussion,
Okay,
because I don't make any personal reading about your life. I don't know really where you come from, who you are, and so on. But I've got an intellectual that I'm talking to, and that's all for me.
and yeah, we can talk about Turkey another time because I have many things to say about Erdogan dynamics. But okay, let me the thing on what you said about the hood analogy and condemning the attacks. You said that's where we disagree. Um, so um, again, I want to make clear and just make sure that you know that we are disagreeing because I do agree that yes, it should not result to violence, even of Muslim communities. You know, I don't think it's not even good for, you know, if I truly care about the well-being of every Muslim and even non-Muslim, then in the case for Muslims,
Even
you
is a
know, it would
good
not.
good word there. Nice, thank you. Thank you for your generosity in considering our lives as well. Thank
Well,
you so much.
because every time I say care for the Muslims, my concern is Muslims. The impression is I don't care about anyone else. So I'm saying like yeah, even everyone else. But in the case of Muslims, if a Muslim individual is going to stab someone because they felt like oh he
No, no, no. Actually,
disrespected.
I'm grateful to you as an atheist in considering quote unquote worthless lives. Even I mean, you know. So that's your generosity. Please go on.
Okay, so let me finish, please. Let me finish my point. So what I'm saying here is, with the case of a Muslim who wants to stab someone or kill someone because they denigrate the Prophet and everything, that's not even that's not not just. I mean, it's not just harming the other person, but it's harming this Muslim person as well. So it's not something that's even for the good of that person. So you know that's not the essential reason why it's wrong. But you know that's even something that is just to demonstrate how it is clearly something that is not anything that any sensible Muslim person would endorse. So so that right there, I mean, we're both on the same page in terms of us perceiving this to be totally inappropriate and extreme. You know it goes past the boundaries of civility and everything. But um, but then but then there's another thing that's being smuggled in here, and that is you know me condemning this person. And you need certain condemnation rests on certain assumptions. One assumption is that the person has freedom to act. You know, if a person has a gun to someone's head and says, you know, I need you to rob the bank or something, I'm not going to condemn that person for robbing the bank, especially if he had a gun to his head or he was being coerced in some way against his will. So you need freedom, you need agency, a certain level of agency. And this is why, I mean, you may not agree with this, but this is what
So
motivates.
is it the same? Is it valid for
Let
a
me,
Muslim offender
well, okay, sure.
to attack just because he couldn't hold himself? How come we can say that? Like, is his freedom to act taken from his hand?
When,
No, he's
when
totally free. He calculates. Think about the Rushdie case. He carefully, tactfully planned. He visited. He waited for the right time. He visited there. That he followed where he's gonna be. to for his conference, for his speech. So he went there and he did what he did. So I don't understand the coercion metaphor to what I'm saying. Plus, I might have agreed with you, as I said, if a universal definition and standard of offense would be possible to define, to be defined. But it is not the case. So I cannot agree with you, like, because I cannot define what remarks are in within the boundary of offense and what not.
Yes, we can get to that. We can get to what is within the boundaries, what's not. But in terms of condemning, yeah. So as I'm thinking about it, I would, of course, the act is intrinsically condemnable, but I would, but then not the person. I mean, not again. You're okay. I mean, this could be a gotcha thing where it's like, okay, you got me, but you haven't addressed how it would be right to condemn someone in the hood, or I keep using this analogy because we could use it back on the wait. Hold on,
You can, in the same way you're offended. I told you already.
I know,
If
but
you,
let me hold on.
yeah,
Let me just finish. I think what is, why it's a bit more tricky or difficult to perceive, to be quite honest, is because maybe it's just this idea that you believe. Maybe it is an aversion of Islam or something. Who knows? Maybe you feel like no, it's warranted to criticize or whatever, or even mock. And what I'm trying to say is, okay, let's look at a different thing, where how could it be right to go into the hood, even if you planned it and strategized and everything, and then to mock people for either how they're living or for rap, gangster music, and all that kind of stuff. To just go is one thing to do it on the news, to do it in the most polite and civil way, where you're not kind of like overgeneralizing or demonizing a whole bunch of black people, um, in the way like Nick Fuentes does. But if you're going there, again, like like Nick Fuentes, or even doing it behind your screen and just kind of like demonizing everyone, and then how am I going to condemn the person who's being oppressed for how that person reacts? It's like asking me to condemn Hamas. So that's and this is why I
yeah,
mean,
for sure, Hamas should be condemned.
yeah, I just thought like maybe that wasn't the best, like, because I know this is the reason why you don't get people condemning Hamas.
Hamas for sure should be condemned for his atrocity on October 7.
No, they should not. They should not.
Okay.
They were the oppressed. There's a difference when you don't. This is why people keep using. Look, I know you believe this, and that's fine. But you have to, as an intellectual, you have to demonstrate your case, because
I
all.
think we are digressing now. I think we should not, let's not involve Hamas here, if you like.
Yeah, let's not. But my whole point is about the oppressed, condemning the oppressed. That's the point. So in the case of, I mean, let me ask you this: who is being victimized in the case where someone writes a book denigrating, disparaging, criticizing, and just mocking all Turks or all Eritreans? I'm ethnically Eritrean, or Americans. Who is the one who's victimized? It does seem like it would be the Americans. If people are
No,
denigrating.
no one is victimized. It's just a silly man. It's just you can say a mentally retarded man published something and it's on the shelf. It's who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, sorry, no, yeah, you and I would say that, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he's still denigrating and mocking. I mean, if
And if Muslims or religious pious people have some anger management issues, Dahoud, it's their concern. They should practice. They should exercise about it. It's not anyone's concern. If you feel hot, if you cannot stand anything against your belief, anything to be told against your belief, um, that's that should be your concern. That should be your issue to deal with. And I think that's one of the major issues of of the proponents of the Abrahamic religions. Actually, not only them, but Hindus and all that, that they have a serious issue of anger management. What can I do about it? I'm not the one, and I'm not the responsible one to fix it. It's as I said, their own matter to handle.
Okay, so let me
So,
wait,
salam
wait, wait.
alaikum.
Let me say something, Al Jadi, before you speak.
By the way,
Let's
thanks a lot for this nice discussion. It's been very fruitful to me. Without any, at least we don't feel offended, right? I mean, for towards each other. At least I myself, I can say on my behalf that I don't for any of those criticism made by you. So I thank you for the debate.
Yeah, likewise. And I was gonna say, Ajadi, let's keep this civil. I know you're a civil guy, and because we've been Sonar and I have been discussing civilly and calmly, and I appreciate you as well. You've been polite, and you've been calm. So let's continue this tone. Let me say something about the anger management. Yeah, I'm not here to make comments on Muslims because where I would be on your side here. I will refuse to condemn Muslims because what you're seeing is a reaction of a tumultuous, precarious, unstable situation that has been brought forth by the West. So that's I can't condemn people who've been oppressed. Especially if the agency has been their agency have been robbed. So it's very similar to. So when we're saying like, oh, anger management, this and that, the Muslims are getting riled up. Well, the West kind of left them in that precarious state. It's the same way I wouldn't condemn Africans, and actually the same way I wouldn't condemn people in the hood who tend to be more prone to violence or joining gangs. That's kind of like not their fault. That's the situation that they've been trapped in and stuck in. So maybe we see it differently here, but so it's not there's a different conversation about like whether because again me being in my nice little house, being privileged to go to a great university and everything, I can say yes, it's wrong. I can say violence is never the answer. These things are not right. We shouldn't act emotionally, and whenever we're angry just react based on our anger, and that has led me to great things in life. But a lot of people weren't blessed and privileged to have that kind of upbringing, that that kind of cultivation. So I can't really condemn people like that. I'm not sure why you feel otherwise.